Hello and good morning, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We are live today. This is the CRE Playbook, your weekly spot for deals, strategies, and tactics to level up your commercial real estate investing game. Today's guest, Jake Wilson, is an incredible person, an entrepreneur, and an absolute expert and shark when it comes to the debt market capital and structuring the capital stack for your investments in, again, the real estate space. Jake, pleasure, and I'm excited about the conversation that we were just having just a couple minutes ago. How are you, man?
I'm doing pretty well. End of year, so it's always a little bit crazy, but we gotta close everything. So make sure all the brokers get paid.
Yep.
First and foremost, appreciate you having me on here today. It's an honor, obviously, to be a part of this, and love what you're doing, and looking forward to the conversation.
Of course, my pleasure. And I think a quick story on a deal that I had closed a couple of years ago. This was impromptu, but I had a deal that was slotted to close. I want to say it was the days before New Year's, so somewhere in the 28th, December 28th. And man, I was sweating, making sure that we were going to get the deal docs back and forth from the lender to the title and escrow. Wow, what a stressful time. How does your team deal with that level of stress?
We do quite a few closings, so they're used to the pressure, and we have clear expectations, and we hold each other accountable. That's one of the cool things about the people that we have, is that everyone has a standard of each other, and everyone's vocal about the standard that we have of each other and the expectations. And even me, when I'm not doing what I necessarily should be on any given moment, because I do get, the shiny object syndrome,
Sure.
I'm like, whoa, what's this? It's like, nope, you need to get back on track, Jake. We need to close this thing. So, yeah, that's basically it. You get used to it to an extent too, right? And we expect performance. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you create that culture of performance and expectation around it, you really start getting people who are attracting A-class performers, and you really start weeding out, naturally speaking, the folks that maybe not so focused on the performance. And you really, again, creating that culture is so critical to the A players. And, again, they don't really necessarily want to be working with the Bs and the C players at all. So you inherently organically create that culture. So it sounds like you guys at Crux have that really well nailed out.
yeah, you have to elevate your game to where we're at. Otherwise, you're not going to last, right? It just is what it is. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the CRE, at least from my perspective, I've seen a lot of folks that are getting more and more innovative in their approach to picking up deals, sourcing deals, funding deals. And really, you have to be at the forefront of really that innovative side in order to stay relevant. Because if you don't, if you start skipping a beat, if you start taking off too much time, and you're really not putting a focus on not just performing today, but performing 12 months from now, you really start becoming irrelevant. And I'm sure it's the same space and same thing in your space.
no question about it. There's a lot of the prior generation in our industry on the finance side. There's actually not that many young people that are great at what we do. So if you're really great at it, you're going to be really busy, which is obviously great for us. But it's about having the people to support at the same level of consistency of quality, to have a continued level of performance. So,
Sure.
yeah, we're constantly doing things to, like you say, try to innovate and be on the forefront of how can we be better, what can we do better, and we talk about it at roundtable at least once a week,
Yeah.
collectively.
So before we get any further, I think I would love to hear, and the folks would love to hear, how did you get started in the CRE, in the commercial real estate, the lending space, the broker space? Tell us a little bit more about yourself, Jake.
Yeah, so I started in banking about, oh man, I would say 15 years ago or so. And just kind of followed the money realistically. I was on the branch side originally, and realized that with the incentive plan that we had, the best way to make the most money was to fund commercial loans, or refer over commercial loans to get funded. And from there, I just kind of got in. I was good at it, and from there, I just kind of got introduced to this world. What I like about it, and always have, is that no two deals are the same. So
Sure.
it never gets really monotonous. Yeah, of course, there's easier deals, there's more complex deals and things like that, but no two deals are the same, which keeps it interesting and fresh for everyone involved. Um, and from there, I became a commercial lender at the bank. I did that with a couple different institutions, and then I was funding a lot of commercial loans for the top mortgage brokers in the Seattle market at that stage. And I just kind of realized that they didn't understand the mechanism of how it worked behind the scenes at the bank, and the levers to pull, and also a lot of the cash flow models outside of the debt service coverage ratio. And I thought that there was a better way. So that's what we set out to do. And here we are, still striving to do it better every single day.
Good. That's awesome. What
Hmm.
you said no two deals are the same. There's easy
Hmm.
deals, there's difficult deals. Not to put you on the spot, but do you have a deal that you'd wouldn't mind sharing, a difficult one in particular that maybe had quite a bit of hair on it within let's say the last 3 years?
Lots of them. So let me see here. All right, so there's one that it was about 15 or 20 million. It was an acquisition. It was on a pretty tight timeline when we got it. I think about 45 days or so.
Wow.
The guy had operated his business, storage business, on site for years and years. He didn't have the equity to put down, but he did have a ton of single family homes that we could pool up into a portfolio. Um, and he, in the subject property that was the acquisition, it actually had contamination on site.
Hmm.
And for that size of a deal with contamination, there's only so many lenders that are going to do that deal. So what we had to do is we had to go in, figure out exactly, who was the lender who's going to fund the acquisition, given that it's dirty and been in cleanup
Yep.
for 10 years or whatever the time frame was. So we had to figure out that piece first, but also what leverage point are they going to do it at, and get confirmation from the chief credit officer on that. And then from there, go and figure out exactly what the equity source would be and which houses we would collateralize given the different ownership structures with each one. So it was a
Hmm.
lot of game planning up front of who's going to do what and where's the money going to come from in order for us to get there. And it ended up working extremely well for the guy. I mean, the guy ended up getting like a 30-year fixed, product at 4.25% with interest only on the single family deals. And then on the other one, we ended up getting, I think, 5-year fixed, 25-year AM at 60% leverage at
Wow.
about 4.25% also. So it was he didn't even know if he was going to get it done because of the contamination
Yep.
originally and the lack of funds. And we fit the puzzle pieces together. And that's really our approach, right? Is we say, okay, well, what's your long-term plans overall for the subject property or your situation? And we pair those long-term plans with the best debt instruments at the best pricing, given the different, obstacles associated with it in order to get it done. And that's kind of how the magic happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, so wow, a couple things. Contamination, those things can be incredibly difficult to close. I mean, I had tried closing on one site in Seattle that had known contamination associated with it, and the folks that I had talked to, obviously I didn't talk to you yet at that point, Jake. They essentially said, no, we're not going to touch it. We're not going to fund it. You have to go get phase one, or rather a phase two, and potentially a phase three study done before we'll even pick it up. And that just, essentially killed the deal. At that point, we explored some seller financing, but that you were able to get that contaminated, dirty soil done, that's great, especially in a 45-minute time frame, and it wasn't an easy close. That's great.
Yeah, it was a tough one, but we got it done. And, unfortunately for me, I've had a lot of environmental experience. So,
They're not easy.
It's a little bit of a specialization on this end.
They're not easy at all.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, closing multiple deals, especially in a short amount of time frame, especially with contamination associated with it. That's a hairy deal. Thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
So moving forward, I know I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the 2024 outlook. We're in December right now, 23. We just had the FOMC meeting happen, and we again held rates, and we're talking about cutting rates in 2024. A few things that I'd like to talk about right now is, first and foremost, is interest rates. Where do we think that those are going to be going? And then secondarily to that would be bank spreads, agency spreads. Jake, do you see those compressing? Do you still see those being as expansive where they are right now? Talking about the spreads, what's your thought? What's your outlook on 2024?
That's a loaded question, so you may have to prompt me again on one of those. Bank spreads. I think bank spreads are going to depend upon their liquidity position. In the short term, I think that we'll probably see them compress a little bit because goals are resetting and bankers, get a little bit insecure about whether they're going to hit them for the year or not. As well as more competition because there's, bucket realignment of what funding buckets open up as soon as the year turns over. So in the short term, I think that they're going to get a little bit more competitive with their spreads. In the longer term, I don't think they're going to have the freed up liquidity that, everyone is hoping for the most part anyways. So I think that the spreads will expand as the year goes on and as the buckets fill and, people realize that they're going to be hitting their goals. So, as far as 2024's outlook, I'm in the camp personally, and I have been for a while, although I was just shown how wrong I am. I'm in the camp that I think rates are, low right now, too low compared to where the short-term funding rates are. The 10-year Treasury and the 5-year Treasury are under 4. The Fed fund rate or prime is at 8.5 today. So it's pretty inverted. I did a presentation at NAIOP event that broke down, who was the top 3 holders of treasuries. And the last time I looked at it, it was, I think, through July. And the Fed Fed holds the most treasuries, followed by Japan and then China. And all 3 of them had sold greater than 10%. In the trailing 12 months during that period. And if everyone's selling them, who's going to buy them? And especially where they're at compared to where the Fed fund rate is. So with that said, since then, rates have done nothing but drop. So someone's been buying them. And I haven't looked back to see exactly who it was or what that source was, if it was a foreign entity or whatever. But my estimation is that unless there's a large catastrophic event, a huge recession, a war that involves the U.S. or Europe or something like that, I think that the Fed is going to continue to sell the treasuries, and I think that they're doing that to fix the inversion that is currently there. And as they're decreasing the Fed fund rate over the next 3 years, they'll be the Treasury should increase to fix the inversion back to a normal spread, which is about 1 to 2% over the Fed fund rate for the 5-year or 10-year Treasury.
Sure.
So that's my estimation. I think they're probably, if you look at the dot plot map, I think that's our best roadmap for where we can expect the long-term rates to be. So if you look at it, I think when they dropped it last week or the week prior, they had in 2025 or 2020, late 2025, 2026, it was going to be about 3.5. And that puts us at a 1 spread over that. That puts us a little bit higher than where we're at today, but pretty much the same over the next 3 years. So that's kind of what I expect. In the short term, I've been wrong. We'll see how it plays out in the long term. That's my anticipation. Liquidity of banks, I think, what's happened there is that they got really fat on COVID money. They got all these deposits. They then went and got very aggressive in lending because they had the funds to do so. Those COVID funds have now started to work their way through the system, so their deposits have gone down. Those loans aren't being repaid as quickly as they had been historically because the rates are so low on those loans. Who's going to pay off a 4.25% loan today?
Yeah, exactly.
Unless there's an event
They're not
happening.
going to be trading very much.
Yeah, so they're getting their normal balance sheet attrition, but until maturities happen, I don't really see how the logjam gets unfreed unless they buy capital via CDs having high rates or have attractive money markets, which then increases their cost of funds, which then passes on to the borrower and an increased spread. So, I don't really see the logjam changing. So I think that the future is, in the short term anyway, in the next 3 years or so, is agency debt, life code debt, CMBS debt, so non-bank credit union financial instrument debt funds is going to really pick up a ton of the slack. So that's where we've spent a lot of our time and effort is in anticipation of what's been happening. Doing the research, we're researching every loan that's funded in the state every single week, for example. So we're doing a lot of things to make sure we are on the front side of that and be data driven in regards to it. But that's what we're anticipating, where we think we're at this stage, and where we are planning to go based upon our assumptions internally.
Sure. That makes sense. And you mentioned debt funds. One thing that I didn't think I heard was, what about preferred equity funds? And how do those play into existing deals? Maybe where refinances can't come into place. Do you have any experience with the preferred equity funds?
Yeah, we've been doing a ton of research on them, anticipation of that too. We haven't done a ton of those deals historically. We have been pricing them out significantly more often recently.
Sure.
And we're seeing a lot of them. So absolutely.
Good. Well, it sounds like in the short term, and I think you're one of the few people that I've talked to that where the short term would be considered 3 years. Let's say the short term 3 years does still look to be relatively difficult in terms of funding some of these deals, and maybe not necessarily difficult, but you need to be creative. You need to have a partner who knows how to structure the capital stack really well. And it's not just as simple. It doesn't necessarily need to be as simple as debt and equity, right? We're talking maybe some mezz debt. We're talking preferred equity. We're talking consolidating some of that capital, not just from, again, 1 or 2 sources, but maybe a consortium of sources.
Absolutely. No question. It's more important than ever. It's who you pick, and I mean, I get a lot of calls that are, hey, we got 30 days to close, our lender fell out, here's where we're at. So who you choose is extremely important. And when we're talking to newbies in the industry, that's one of the hardest things, right, for us to deal with is they get pulled in so many different directions on
Yep.
who's telling them what. They don't know, they walk into the bank and the banker says, "Oh yeah, we can get this deal done," even though it doesn't fit their box at all. And to them, they're hearing it from the bank, and you can't really blame them,
Sure.
right? Because they don't know any better. So we do the best we can to educate everyone on why and how much effort we put into it, and why our team is so important. We have probably more resources than anyone I've heard of, anyways, on our deals. So not only that, but what I always tell the team is deals or experience isn't measured in years. It's measured in deals done.
Sure.
Right? Because you could be sitting at a bank, or you could be a broker doing 5 deals a year. Well, we've done 100 in the last year, or 110, or whatever that is. So we've had 20 years worth of your experience, buddy.
Sure. In 1
Because
year.
it's not
And a
many
difficult
different
year too.
obstacles faced on how to overcome them and everything else. So we look at things a little bit differently here, and we try the best we can to educate everyone and on how we work, why we work this way, and all the different things we've overcome historically to help.
Good. Love it. Well, I appreciate it. I think we are getting close to our time, Jake. I want to spend a couple minutes on our triple threat. Before we get into that, is there any advice that you would give to, let's say, a third time, fourth time CRE investor, closed 3 or 4 deals in the last year, and they're looking to get into their next larger, whether it's a multifamily or self-storage deal? Any clear advice that you'd give to somebody in that space?
Yeah, I'd say it's all about follow through. You got to look at your relationships as extremely important. A lot of people in this industry are short sighted with, for example, their real estate broker relationships, and I think that is one of the biggest mistakes I see. They go and they ask the broker to send them their off-market properties before they hit the market or whatever, and then they bring in another real estate agent.
Sure.
Things like that are like, hey, you got to take care of the person who's taking care of you. So forge those relationships, lean on those relationships, and expect to get dividends for being more long-sighted.
Sure. Totally makes sense. Well, I appreciate it. I think that's great advice. I think, again, making sure that you're taking care, like you said, taking care of your deal flow, and making sure that your bottleneck, you're doing everything you can to keep that bottleneck as wide as possible, whether that's your deal flow, your equity flow, your debt flow. Again, take care of the people that take care of you. Great. Well, that sounds great, Jake. Great advice. I'll certainly take that. I know that, I absolutely love the brokers that I work with. And anytime that I can shoot them back, whether it's a list back or whatever it happens to be, I think, again, taking care of them is like you said, the most important thing to do. All right. So triple threat, where we talk about what we do as entrepreneurs, what we do as investors in order to take care of ourselves. Right. So we talk about what do we do physically, what do we do mentally, and what do we do financially to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And the first question, Jake, is, what's something that you do regularly to keep yourself physically fit?
Pace. So I spend the majority of my day on the phone. And what I do is I pace all day long on the phone. And that's pretty much how I get the majority of my exercise. I know I should be doing more. I don't, unfortunately, at this stage. But I got an Aura ring recently, and I was actually shocked at the amount of steps. I was encouraged by the amount of steps that I get on a day-to-day basis. It's somewhere around 12,500 just on a day-to-day basis. So it made me feel a little bit better about what I'm doing than I did prior to having the ring. But that's the other thing I do is I take bike rides with the family on a pretty regular basis, with the kids and my wife, and we really enjoy doing that together. So which also kind of bleeds into the mental piece, right? It's kind of a peaceful time for us with our family.
Sure.
So yeah.
I like it. So, just in perspective, I know we were talking about this before we started recording. For me, I enjoy running. I don't know if I enjoy is the right word. I run, and the last time I did, I think it was 6 miles earlier this week, 6 mile run, and I was just below like 15,000 steps. And to me, that's great. Like what you can do with in your own time, within your own, not taking away work time by, like you said, pacing, and maybe you get a standing desk with a walking treadmill underneath it. Anything is minor as possible like that you don't have to, commit an hour and a half worth of your work day and your personal day just to get out and work out. Doing things like you said, pacing while you're taking phone calls, maybe a standing desk with a walking treadmill, or even a bike underneath your sitting desk, something to just, again, keep active, is going to help you physically, which, like you said, it will help you on the mental side. I love the bike rides. My wife, daughter, and I, we take bike rides all the time as well, especially now that it's been a really mild winter here in Seattle. Has been super dry, at least in my opinion. Anything else on the mental side that you do that you'd recommend, whether it's book, podcasts, or
yeah. So I've been listening to books. I've read a couple books recently that were really great. 10x is easier than 2x is
Yep.
The most recent one that I've been trying to follow. Who Not How. Sullivan's phenomenal, brilliant guy and coach. I'm not a part of Strategic Coach, but I definitely believe in what he's doing. The other thing is I read a ton of news.
Yep.
And I just try to stay as current as I can in all financial topics so that, we're on the forefront of everything at all times. So, yeah.
So in terms of news, you mean specifically economic news, financial, capital market? Okay.
And real estate, right?
Sure.
Like everything Seattle related, real estate wise, I pretty much try to stay on top of. And those are the things I do outside of just working and spending time with the family.
Nice. Love it. Those are really great. I think, again, like you said, reading news, listening to books. I think you're the fifth person in the last week that have mentioned that 10x is easier than 2x. Not a book that I've read yet, but I think now I actually have to go get
it. You got to do it. It's great.
Yep.
It's impactful.
Love it. Last question is, financially speaking, is there an end goal? Is there something that you're trying to attain, certain lifestyle that you're trying to design? Help us understand, financially speaking, where's Jake going?
For a long time, it was a $50 million net worth goal. That was always what it was. I don't know how the number arrived there. I have zero idea how that number, I think I probably at one point as a banker saw someone's PFS and was like, this is what I want, but that was the goal forever, so, but I don't really have a measurable goal today. I would say if anything, it's still that,
Sure.
With that said, my goal for a long time was to own buildings. Obviously I've bought quite a few at this stage. So one of my goals is to have 1,000 units. I'm at about 300 today, roughly. So quite a ways off there.
Yep.
Still a lot of ground to make up there. The other thing is just to be able to do what you want when you want, right?
Yep.
To have the lifestyle, to never have to worry about money, and to really just be where you want to be, doing what you want to do. I don't think I'll ever stop working because it's just who I am. It's in my blood, and I love it. I don't know that I'll ever stop doing deals just because I love it, With that said, not having to do all the deals would be a great thing. So
sure.
That's a goal. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. The lifestyle design is the best one. I think that resonates with everybody, is to be able to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, wherever you want. I think that the true independence of being able to pick and choose is the dream.
Yeah, the only thing we can't have back is time. So,
man, ain't that the truth? That is absolutely the truth.
Yeah.
Well, love it, Jake. Appreciate your time. This has been fantastic. Help me with how folks should get in contact with you. Best contact information. What's your website? Anything else that you'd like to leave?
Yep, absolutely. So cruxcre.com is our website. My phone number and email is on there. It's jacob@cruxcre.com. Feel free to reach out at any time and let's chat.
Great. And that's Crux, CRUX. Quick question is, what is Crux? What does that mean?
My business partner, Rob Hawkins, actually came up with the name. It just stands out. It sticks,
Sure.
So it's the most important part of something, which is, a lot of times financing. So it kind of just fit overall. And we loved it. So we went with it.
Love it. Jake, Crux, I appreciate it. This has been great. I'll leave all of your contact information in the show notes. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on the CRE Playbook, where we talk about deals, strategies, and tactics to level up your game. Thanks, Jake. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.